Hey everyone, this is Mike.
And this is Paxton.
And welcome to the Mad Liberty Party, where up is down, left is right, the rum is always gone, and the world is full of clowns.
Feel like the world's gone mad? Then pull up a chair and we'll throw you a teacup, because we're all mad here.
So today, on this show, we're going to be discussing problems frequently discussed by the two-party system, and we're going to be breaking down why neither of their solutions really work or will work, but we're going to also try to provide some solutions of our own. Mind, we're not, like, experts or anything, but these things seem to make a little bit more sense to us than what's going on.
I'm an expert. Alright guys, and today, starting out for us as always, we've got what we are now dubbing the Sweet Tea segment, where we will be sharing some good news with you guys. And today we have a really interesting segment that I found. The article reads, "School turns resource-greedy lawn into giving garden that provides produce to feed the poor." And let's see, let's get into this real quick here. So it reads within the article, it says the Giving Garden at Orcas Christian School on Orcas Island, Washington, which is run by dozens of volunteer students and community members, is thriving since its summer harvest. Produced more than 100 pounds of fresh organic produce for the local food bank. Particularly, the really interesting thing I found from this is that there is a organization that's been helping these people. They're called All Hands on Earth, or simply referred to All Hands. They're a nonprofit dedicated to building drought-tolerant, sustainable organic food sheds and teaching local communities the permaculture principles of how to care for the earth, care for people, and fair share, or returning surplus to earth and to people.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So I thought this was a really interesting segment because, not only is it, environmentally knowledgeable, and especially during this whole thing with Greta going on and the environment and all that stuff, both Mike and I are very environmentally conscious. It's definitely something we're really, really concerned about. So not only does this help combat that type of stuff with pollution and things of that nature, but it also creates a sense of community. Whenever you've got all these people... Exactly. It's voluntary stuff where you're helping out your community, you're providing for your community, you get to meet new people, and it creates a sense of community. Everyone gets to say, hey, we're going to go down to the garden, get some produce, or help out building the garden. It's just, all in all, a really great thing that's going on at the moment. And 100 pounds of produce, that's crazy. That is a lot of veggies going to a food kitchen.
And that is really important, too, because, a lot of people do canned food drives, and they give cans and dried food to these places. And from what I've heard from a lot of people who work at these places, that produce and fresh things are in extreme and constant need in these places. So that's extra awesome.
Yeah, it's really hard to find anything wrong with this. Not only is it teaching these children at this school, how to be a part of their community, how to do good, how to garden, how to be self-reliant. I mean, this is all the stuff that Mike and I talked about from our previous episodes of self-reliance. This is libertarianism at its core. It's showing that we don't need someone larger than us taking care of our local areas. We're more than capable. If these children can help take care of their community with just a very small piece of land, imagine what we could do on a voluntary local level. I think we're way more capable of what we give ourselves credit for, especially what the left and right like to give us credit for.
Well, not to mention, we keep bringing up the whole thing about our concern for the community and stuff, and I've noticed that along the way, no matter where I've gone, community and communal gardens have been cropping up all over the place, and they do draw people together. maybe this is one of those constructive things that we could all look into. I know that I'm trying to get a garden myself together, but there's a really wonderful community garden just down the street from me, too, that I've been meaning to go down and take a look at and see if I can't do some volunteering at. You guys could do that kind of shit yourself. Just take an hour or two a day. I mean, maybe an hour or two a week, even.
Hmm. One of the big projects for next year that I really am hoping to get done is, I do a garden every year, but this coming season I was wanting to do a particularly large one, and ideally what I would like to do is give it to, essentially what these kids are doing, give it up to a food kitchen or a homeless shelter, something of that nature. Yeah, I mean, it's not only do I have enough for myself, but I'm able to give back to the community. I think that's really important. I think that is the heart of the heart of libertarianism, where we're able to, we care for ourselves. That's the first thing you got to take care of. Take care of your family unit, but we're able to expand beyond that. That's the key of self-reliance. It's not just about you. It's not just about your family. It's about being able to expand your responsibility to the community.
Right, and your true success, I mean, it's nice to be successful in caring for yourself and your family, but your true success is to be able to actually comfortably reach beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Or uncomfortably, if you want to get dirty.
Oh, yeah.
I think we could probably talk about these kids and how awesome this thing is all day, though.
Oh yeah, we could totally do a whole episode just on this alone. But the really great thing is speaking of self-reliance, we get to dive right into this. So, as Mike mentioned in our introduction, today we're going to be talking about three programs, so to speak, that are trying to address three different problems that both sides try to address with their various methods. And we're going to be breaking down these problems, what the left and or right have tried to do to solve these problems, and why it hasn't worked and why it won't work, as well as providing a libertarian approach to fix all these problems. So Mike, if you would like to start us off with the exact opposite of what these kids are trying to do here.
Yeah, our first subject is probably one of my least favorite problems that we have right now, and we're probably going to lose some listeners by saying that welfare causes more problems than it actually fixes, but it's something that we both feel that we really need to talk about. It's there to try and help combat poverty and to lift people up into a better place, but who was it that said not to judge welfare on how many people it can handle, but on how many people it can that leave it? Well, we don't really seem to have very many people leaving it anymore, and we're going to get into some of the reasons why.
Right. Going into that a little bit more, not only does welfare really attack the poverty, but it's almost giving an incentive to remain in poverty.
Yeah, not to say that people want to stay in poverty, mind you.
Yeah, it's creating a sense of content, I would say. And that's something that we're going to kind of get into, is people get in these situations of being content with their economic situation, in which they don't know, they want to do more. Everybody wants to grow in a capitalist society. That's the gift of capitalism, is that we all have that American dream to reach up for the stars. But they don't know how, because they're in this situation. They get in these situations where they're provided these benefits, and if they try to reach for that capitalistic dream, they get those benefits taken away from them suddenly, and they're left off worse than what they were before.
And when you have children, those risks are even more weighty. You're not just making these risks for yourself, you're making these risks for your family.
For sure. Now, the first major reason why welfare doesn't work, particularly with this election cycle, we've got just about everyone on the Democratic side, and even a lot of people on the right, that are suggesting we need to expand the welfare state. And all of them, particularly, I like to point at Yang because he states that he's a big numbers guy, but as charismatic as he is and as knowledgeable as he is on a lot of these subjects, he fails every single time to get close to the number, to get close to the cost of what he's proposing as far as a welfare state goes. When we're talking about trillions of dollars, and then you give me examples of how we're going to cut this and that, and that's going to get us to, $500 million, those are all really big numbers. But $500 million is nowhere even close to $1 trillion. That's still 50% away from 1 trillion. And it's crazy. There's no way that we're going to be able to provide to the same extent that other more homogenized nations have been able to provide themselves with.
Mind
And
you, I'm gonna pause real quick and point out that I know some of you Yang gangers are out there following me, and I like you guys. If you can contest this in any way and explain some shit to us, contact us. We'll bring you on tea time. We can talk about it.
Or heck, if you're Yang himself and you want to come on to our show.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, wouldn't that be awesome?
It'd be pretty cool. I mean, I don't mean any offense to Yang himself. He's really, out of all the fucking lefties that I've seen so far.
Yeah, out of all the candidates,
he's
he's my favorite. I actually am a little biased towards him, even though I will bitch about some of the things he's putting forward.
He's just slightly right of, like, Lenin, I would say, compared to the people that are extremely left of Stalin. So he's just a little bit better.
His social capitalist stuff does intrigue me, but I'm leery because of, my beliefs on on the free market and shit.
Yeah. Now, but yeah, so money is definitely one of the biggest problems out there. There's just not enough money. We're in trillions of dollars in debt as is. We're not getting anywhere close to repaying that. And I hear a lot of arguments talking about how that's okay to be in debt, and that's healthy for a country to be in debt. And to an extent, I get what you're saying, and I get the logic behind it. But at the end of the day, whenever you're in debt, that means that you owe money to other countries. You owe money to investors, and that's not ideal. One, we have an extremely high interest rate for that money. The more debt that you collect, the more money that you're having to put towards this debt. And whenever that debt's going nothing but higher at an extremely fast rate, you start getting spiraling debt.
Well, not to mention a lot of the end of career welfare that we've got up there, like our SSI and shit, it's being drained for the war pool and other things.
Exactly. So not only are we having to pay more money for debt, we just don't have the money. That's the end of it. We do not have the money. There is nothing, unless we start talking about cutting down military spending, which, we can have that discussion on another day, and I'm sure we'll have an episode about military investment. We really should. But unless we start talking about cutting the military dramatically, there's no way. There's no way in hell. There's nothing that's been presented that gets us even close to the levels of money that we would need in order to provide that, even close, even half of what they're providing with their social welfare state ideas. And that's basing it off Elizabeth Warren's program, Bernie Sanders' program, as well as Yang's program. I would say that Yang's is probably almost crazier. Like, Yang doesn't even have like a welfare state outline. He just has, here's $1,000, rather than talking about Medicare and Medicaid and stuff like that. And to that extent, I do like him, because at least then it's not state-ran welfare or anything like that, but he's still giving out $1,000, and at least then you can spend it on whatever you want. But he's still fucking crazy, and he's nowhere near getting that much money for his plan.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah, it kind of leads us to our next problem, and why it won't work, why welfare doesn't work, which is the dependence on the state. You want to start us off on that, Mike?
Yeah, I gotta admit, it's one of the most heartbreaking situations, because I've helped a lot of people get onto welfare with the idea of bettering themselves and then getting off, right? And these people were not, they were worse off than, you know what I mean? So getting on welfare was a a good solution to them being able to feed their kids and crap like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't hate a person for getting on welfare. I will never hate on a person for using what the state has already got out there right now. It's kind of like why I didn't break all of my Gillette razors. I'm just not going to buy anymore, you know? But these people, they get on it and they start moving forward. They start being able to eat. They start being able to buy clothes for their kids more often. Things like that, you know, the quality of life will go up. It does help. But then you hit this point where you have a choice. You can push forward and make more money and lose your benefits, or you can not push forward and stay right where you are at the line of what you can make and have security. And pushing forward is fucking hard. I have watched person after person fall, and it just fucking kills me. Like, I'm not living in the Gap right now. I'm not really sure where the hell I'm living, but my household is not in the Gap right now. We managed to get past it, and it was a long struggle on everyone's part. If you have more than one child, it's hard, and you're going to be having to consider the risks. You have to consider your kids and everything. If you have more than one child, it's almost impossible. And we call that the Gap. Because basically they leave you
contrary to the thigh gap. It is not a good thing.
Yeah, basically where it exists at the edge of the poverty line, and it is the space in which the government will not help you, but you can't quite live on your own without them. And people will slide back down into the system again because they have no choice. And they do this again and again, and you watch it break them slowly. And it's demoralizing. Like, I fucking hate it. There are ways to get out, but it's so hard that, like... And I got emotional on that, and maybe sort of anecdotal, but the fact is that I've helped people in multiple states across this nation. I've helped people from here in other states. You know, they come to me and ask me to look all this shit up, and I've learned so much about welfare and welfare things that, yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap that we have to fucking be in. It's a weight that you attach to your own ankle, and then you can't get it off.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, and that's why I think it's really silly when I hear from libertarians that they support Yang, because the whole $1,000 thing, whenever you're getting $1,000 handed to you by the government, that creates a sense of dependence. Because when all of a sudden, let's say theoretically that there's a big movement for whatever reason, or the government just decides to cut off that $1,000. Whenever that's been in the line for a year, 2 years, even a couple of months, people have now included this additional free $1,000 into their budgets, and now it's being taken away from them. That's never going away. It's never going to happen because now people are dependent on it. They just expect it. And that's the same thing for a lot of these other things.
Well,
whenever you've got welfare, whenever you've got food stamps, you create a sense of dependence on the state because no one's going to take those things away because people expect them.
Exactly.
When there's a dependence on the state knows it's not going to go away. No one's going to vote to weaken the state because the state's benefiting right now. It's a very short-sighted benefit. They don't think about the taxes being taken out of their paycheck where they could be doing the same exact thing specifically for them and specifically for their communities.
If you think about it, we've all been raised to like believe that this is their job. But as I've grown up and been in and out of this system in various ways, I've come to realize that they don't do their job well. If I did my job this badly in any job I have ever fucking worked, I would have been fired pretty much immediately. Like, if you can't perform, we get someone else to do the job in every other situation in our life, except for this one.
I've got I've got people doing road construction right outside my neighborhood, and they've been doing this for roughly about 6 months now, which is ridiculous. It should not be taking 6 months because they've got other sections of the road that started afterwards that have already been cleared out and already been repaired to a modern standard. The reason why is these are independent contractors hired by the local government to handle these things, and what's happening is that there's a budget, and they're basically just trying to run that budget. They're trying to spend as much money as possible, and that's as corrupt as you can fucking get. Rather than fixing the problem, they're just trying to make sure they get the most amount of money. You should want a government that needs less money. You don't want a government that has more money. That means they're trying to take more money away from you to put it in their own fucking pockets. That's not what you want. If they're able to do everything that they should be doing and do it with less money, that is good.
But we can't do that. The government even made me agree with Ocasio-Cortez at one point because she was like, fuck. Yeah, dude, seriously, I was in shock. She looked up at these things and said, this costs like $32 or $36 or something to make, and you guys are paying $300 something to get one. Why? And I have to agree with her. Why?
Probably has something to do with Israel knowing those girls.
Oh my god, we are so demonetized.
We got demonetized whenever I mentioned the thigh gap, so.
Oh god.
We're already Nazis, fat shamers, it's okay.
If you guys want us to have better cameras, you should donate to us. No, I'm just kidding. Ain't no PewDiePie over here.
I mean. So yeah, that's why their ideas of welfare won't work. So how about we talk about some actual solutions? And
I like the solutions more. They're more fun to talk about.
Oh yeah,
they make me less sad.
We get this shit all the time. If you watch Fox News, CNN, or whatever the fuck you watch, they're so quick to start bitching about something and so quick to say that this isn't going to work. But very, very seldom do they actually provide you with a solution. Because their solution is exactly the same as the other side. The right want the same thing that the left want. They all want larger government. Yeah. The only solution, the only thing that's going to work, the only thing that's going to make you feel like an empowered citizen is if we weaken the federal government, empower the locals. I have all these leftists talking about democracy and everything, and they don't realize that they have the closest thing to a democracy that they can possibly have in their local areas. If they just focused on the local area, empowered the locals, exactly, they're just not taking advantage of it. Instead, they want to screech and scream at the top of their lungs.
You can go to your own city halls and sign up and actually speak there. Do you know how many people don't know that they can do that? Like, as a regular citizen, you can go to
I pay my taxes, I don't have to worry about it.
Well, it's...
Anyway... so going back to the solution here, so the first thing, and you'll probably get this from a lot of libertarians, and I'm sure a lot of our libertarians are going to agree with this, the first thing that you can do is cut back on taxes.
Yep.
If there is more money in your pocket, you're going to spend that money on the things that you need. The government doesn't know what you need nearly as well as you know it.
That is definitely one place where Yang has it right. If you have the money, you'll spend it.
Exactly. And Yang's halfway there. He just hasn't figured out the rest of it.
We're halfway there. Oh, living on a... Okay, I'm sorry.
You should be.
I'm not.
So, with cutting taxes, you have more money in your pocket, which means you can put that money to things, rather to additional meals for your family, to putting it back for savings, putting it in stocks, putting it towards a new car. It doesn't fucking matter. Whatever it is that you're putting it to, even if it's fucking crack cocaine, it's still a better investment than what the government's going to be doing. Because you have to remember, and this is the biggest thing that I can stress, if you are anti-war and you're also pro-additional taxes, your tax money largely is going to the wars. The majority of it, the majority of the government spending budget is in the military. The majority of that is to offensive military actions in other countries. So if you're anti-war and you're pro-taxes, you're a hypocrite. Cut and dry. Cut back on the taxes, handle local issues, let people deal with their own fucking problems. With less reliance on the government, people are more able to rely on themselves and their communities and build their communities up. Do you want to hit us up on the next point before I start screaming?
Oh my god, yeah, I don't want you to start screaming, man. My favorite part here is, like, obviously we can go into our communities and do things. We can replace welfare with, you know, an actual sense of well-being in our communities. The kids with their garden, that is a perfect example of the things we can do. Right now we have our government shutting down people who are trying to replace welfare with their own actions. Was it last year? They tried to arrest a guy for trying to feed the homeless in Florida. Do you remember that? Or was that 2 years ago?
It's actually not that uncommon in general.
I've
hear
heard those
like
stories all the time. I just remember that one got blown up a little bigger because it hit the mainstream news. But like we have, yeah, I know, the mainstream news. Oh God, but it's really amazing the amount of stuff that you can go out there and do. And if you do it by yourself, you won't be doing it for long. I'm gonna get anecdotal here and tell a little story real quick. And like when I was younger, I was at a church camp. And I did not like church camp. Church camp was boring to me. I didn't want to sit around out in the middle of the woods where I could be playing and listening to people read books. Like, that was not what I thought was going to be fun. And at this camp, there was a completely destroyed, trashed out a bridge that went over the river, and all this trash had just gathered on this bridge and everything in it. It was nasty. It smelled bad. It was gross. And so I just took a bag and started cleaning it up with my own hands. And before the hour was out, I had 3 people helping me. By the time that week was over, a huge chunk of the camp had abandoned reading to actually do something. And we created, like, an actual, like, I met people there that I still talk to now. That kind of shit, we can do that. You can do that as one person. Because you won't be one for long. And people who think that like, one of the big problems that I run into also is that people have a hard time feeling that other people will do this sort of thing. And the mainstream media does not support that because they very rarely show you people doing these things. Right now, we are hyper-focused on everything that will make us angry or upset or offended. I mean, wouldn't you say so?
Well, you know, I'm kind of upset that you would even say that, Mike.
Are you offended? Are you outraged?
A little outraged.
I'm outraged at this culture. No.
I'm gonna have to send you an angry letter. Maybe even a tweet. Maybe.
Seriously, though, and you don't have to start something. If you're not a starter, you can go out there. There are constantly things going on in people's communities that you can go help with.
Real quick, I just want to point out, we kind of talked about this in the previous episode, but, you know, going out and doing things is really important. And even as an introvert, like, it's particularly difficult for me because I hate fucking talking to people. I'll just put that out there. I'm super introverted. I don't like talking to people. The least amount of interaction possible is ideal. I know there's libertarians out there that are like that. There's a lot of libertarians that are isolationists. What you can do is you can make a fucking garden and just fucking take your plants, take the extra produce that you have, and drop it off somewhere. Drop it off at a food bank. That's all it takes. There's zero interaction. No one has to write you a receipt. You're just dropping off food. Here's a basket. That's it. And if you want to do more than that, that's great. But even as an introvert, even if you want to have as little interaction as possible, you can do that. You can help your community.
Yeah.
You've got to think what 10 pounds, 5 pounds, a handful of vegetables is going to do for a food kitchen. That's so much money that they're not having to spend towards this stuff. Yeah. Which means those donations that do come in can go to other things.
And you may think, hey, maybe 10 pounds isn't going to really feed that many people. But if everybody thinks that way, then no one will do it. But
That's
the
at least
truth
one go
is
for me.
that you're not the only one out there doing it. A lot of people find it hard to believe that other people will do these things, like I said, but we're all over the place, and our 10 pounds can add together. It was like we said in last episode. One, if we each did just a little bit, do you know how much that is? And I mean, as far as programs go, there are some really constructive ones out there. A few years back, there was a woman who rose herself up from poverty and created a company that was made to actually hire people who were homeless. And these homeless people were making these coat sleeping bags that were set to help people outdoors and stuff and help them make it through the winter and everything. And if I'm not correct, I will double check this and get some information up here. Everyone that they sell, they give one away, I'm pretty sure. It's a really neat concept. Like, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get really serious, let's get out there and make some companies to help people, that raise people up.
Yeah. Kind of tying into that, rising people up. If you've got to learn, and we've got to instill the idea of self-reliance again. A lot of people nowadays are critical of what was said back in the 40s and 50s, and even prior to that in the 20s, about pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps. That's the best possible thing you can do. What is a life if you're having to rely on your livelihood via someone else? If you can't live because someone else isn't holding your hand, then you're not really living a life. You're letting them live that life for you. They're giving you permission to live, essentially. That's not freedom. That's the illusion of freedom.
Yes, it is.
Whenever you get into these acts of helping your community, you start learning more about self-reliance. You start, like gardening, again, as another example. You're now being able to feed yourself, feed your family, feed your community. That all has to do with self-reliance. And more importantly, the biggest thing for me is once you get involved in your community and you start helping your community more, that's your fallback program. You don't need the government, because now you have a neighbor that gives a fuck about you. You have a neighbor that knows your name, that has a face to the name, has a face to the house, and remembers that time when you gave them an eggplant.
Yep.
Now, whenever they see someone breaking into your house or see a suspicious car, they're going to be calling the police or hopefully the local militia.
Or maybe they'll just give you an eggplant when you need one.
Exactly. Trade eggplants for eggplants. You might not need that eggplant right now, and you're able to provide it to someone else, but you never know when hard times are going to come. And rather than calling to Big Daddy government and suckling on their teat, you can now rely on your local community members. Problem solved. That's how it used to be done. When people fell in hard times, they would go to their local community. There would usually be a food kitchen there, and they would get food for free.
Yeah.
And the expectation was that sometime, whenever you get back on your feet, you would come back to that same area and help out, to help other people on their feet. That is a community. That is freedom.
We got to pass it forward to each other.
Exactly. All right, Mike and I are going to take a short break. Please stay tuned with this commercial message from us. It's very important. And we will see you all shortly.
He says, my grandpa once told me not to use my blinker when driving because it's no one's business where you're going.
All right, guys, we are back, and we are going to actually go straight on into the very next topic, because watch out, everyone, it's Prohibition time. That one thing that comes out to tell us we can't do it. You thought you were an adult, you thought you could make your own choices, but then Uncle Sam pops in and tells you can't do that, or he's gonna what? He's gonna
prohibitize you.
Take your money.
I don't like that.
He's gonna take your money.
Yeah, he's gonna take your money.
He's gonna take your money.
Uncle Sam reminds me of like your super religious uncle at the Thanksgiving Thanksgiving party. And he's like, "What a slut showing your shoulders to your whole family. I bet you have the premaritals. I bet you're the fucking girl whose principals hate, showing off your ankles."
Oh my god.
Hey, fucking Iran, dude. Calm down.
Yeah, just it's a little bit crazy the things that we can and cannot do these days. But the main problem with Prohibition and why we're talking about it being in this particular episode is because
Why is it a thing, Mike?
Well, it was supposed to, Prohibition is supposed to keep us safe as the public, and it's supposed to, well, fund government things, to be honest, because most things that Prohibition cause are fines. Sometimes they do cause us to go to jail, though, and that's a whole different story altogether. All of these things feed back into causing people to fall into various degrees of poverty, because they focus mainly on minorities and poor people. Because like anywhere that there's a fine for doing something that you shouldn't do, the government says you shouldn't do, people who make a larger amount of money, they can just pay that and go on. For some of us, that money was what we were going to feed our kids with next week. And
oh yeah.
And that is a serious issue. Like, not only is your super religious Uncle Sam mind you, we're not saying America's religious, we're just making a comparison. It is kind of religious.
We trust in God.
I trust in someone.
As
Anyways,
the great Frank Underwood once said, "I pray to myself, for myself."
Gracious me. We just lost all of our viewers. I'm just kidding. Anyways,
I forgot even children.
No, it's really a big problem, though. I mean, I know
Diddling children.
No, well, yes, diddling children is a huge problem, but that's not on topic. I mean, why do you want to go into a well-ordered and reasonable list of why Prohibition doesn't work? Because you're very good at the history stuff. We both are, but you're better at putting it in order.
Yeah, so the biggest thing with Prohibition, the idea of it, of course, is that it's going to help the general health of the populace, and it's also going to cut down on crime. For example, alcohol. This is kind of the famous version of Prohibition. Prohibition in of itself is a action, but a lot of people look at it as a event that happened. So alcohol, there was prohibition on that, and essentially they said there's no more alcohol. You can't sell alcohol. That's it. Done deal. Because a whole bunch of essentially what would have been leftists in the modern day, it was a whole bunch of screaming women out in the streets saying alcohol was bad. And for whatever reason, the government decided to cave to that. And what happened is just essentially anarchy. You had the creation of what were referred to as speakeasies, which were secret backroom alcohol dens where people were still being able to sell beer and other alcohols. And the biggest thing with this is now that alcohol is illegal, people are making it illegally because there's still a demand, which means there's always going to be someone that's willing to make it, to supply it. Now it's not being regulated, so now you have people that are making alcohol contents way over, 100 proof, and you're getting people super drunk. Crime goes way out of the way over. Yeah. People are dying left and right because they're getting alcohol poisoning because they're thinking that this is just normal alcohol and they don't realize the proof of it. And then you have the rise of gangs that are now murdering people for territory, and it's a complete and utter train wreck.
Yeah, and we're not really trying to make a run for government regulation here. We're talking about even the public can't regulate it as consumers because they don't know what's going on with black market sales.
Right. This was all such a quick thing, no one really knew what the fuck was going on, because it's such a big thing to put a ban on. It'd be like the equivalent of today if they said just no beer. If they put no beer out, the country would collapse. Like, it would be absolute anarchy. People would be losing their fucking minds.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of it, though.
On a modern play of that right now, we have the vape situation with the black market vapors, the black market pod makers. They're literally making it look like it's a legitimate product because they can just order the pods and the packaging, and they all have the same, like, several of them use the same brand name and everything. This brand name itself is black market, and you don't even know which black market maker made this particular version of it, because that's what everyone's putting on it. That is some creepy stuff, and that's not possible without a black market. Like, if you start making things like that, we can't, as consumers, follow it either. And it's a danger to the public. It's better to have it all out in the open.
Right, yes. If things are legalized, at that point, people can... One, there's going to be here's the biggest misconception about regulation. Is without regulation, corporations would just come in and start slitting throats, essentially. They would start making products, and they would start killing people. And that's just a crazy thing. Like, if there's a product that comes out on the market and it starts killing people, that's going to be on Twitter within the next 24 hours. And you still have people fucking thinking that vaccines are dangerous for them because of a paper that was published 50 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
and
they're not
so
going to slide by.
Yeah, it's not going to be something that just eases by. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this, and then if people don't listen to it and they continue to use the product and they start dying from it, then even more people are going to
listen to it.
That's going to run that company to the ground. It's going to cause people to go to other corporations, and that's the end of it. You don't need a super strict regulation for things to regulate. That's the power of consumerism, is that you as a consumer, you as an individual, have the power to regulate the market. You don't need Big Daddy Uncle Sam telling you what is and is not regulated. You can decide as the consumer.
Yeah, and in the instance of the sex trade, the creation of the black market actually feeds into the human slave trade and things like that. The black market actually creates danger for human beings in this country. And that black market is just the only reason it is there is because people aren't allowed to sell sex. Like, the people are constantly in fear of being duped into a fake job, and the next thing you know, you're going to be some sort of, like, you're going to wake up in somebody's trunk or change to something in a room. That sort of thing, that was created by Prohibition. And that's a prohibition that still runs in our country today still kills people and disappears people on a daily basis.
It was Shanghai, wasn't it? Shanghaiing. You got Shanghaied.
I
think that was the terminology for it.
I think maybe. But yeah, when I was working in the adult entertainment industry, one of the first things they started to teach me was about the dangers. And every single danger that we face, except for the problem of disease, which is actually not that big of a fucking worry on our list, because a lot of, like, if you're working in a legit place, people are getting tested and stuff. Almost every single one of those fears and dangers was caused by our government making it illegal instead of making the sex trade illegal. And so even people who are doing legal sex trade, as in pornography, they're in danger by the prohibition of the sex trade. It dominoes outwards and affects our community in bad ways. And the thing is, like, if you have a lot of money, this isn't going to bother you so much. You can pay your way out of a lot of these crimes. These victimless crimes. But if you're an underprivileged person in America, which is a large chunk of us, or even a middle class person in America, those fines are expensive. And they go directly to funding the government. Do we get any say over where those things go? As far as I know, we really don't. And if you don't have the money and you don't give them the money, you know, you're going to end up with a ticket, and then you're going to have a warrant, and then you're going to end up in jail. And then you have to sit out those days in jail until you've paid off what you owe the government because you had sex with someone for money.
And that entire time, you're not exactly getting paid either. So it's just a spiral.
Yeah, imagine you doing this sort of shit to raise your kids as a single mother. Well, what's happening to your kids right now? You know, I mean, and the government will take your kids from you too. They'll ruin your whole life over prohibition and then turn around and say that they want to, you know, help us with welfare and shit.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, there's so many people who go to jail over prohibition, like marijuana, you know? That's a huge issue. We really need to continue along our path to legalization at this point. I'm really, really happy with what Colorado is doing. I believe they're pursuing the legalization of opiates as we speak. That may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. That's pretty amazing.
That's the last I heard.
Yeah, they just legalized mushrooms. Was the last thing they legalized. But we really need to get rid of it.
Going further into it, having prohibition also causes it creates government abuse. Is the gist of it? A lot of people don't know about this. Maybe they hear
permission to abuse us too.
Yeah, but a lot of people may have not heard about this, or perhaps you have heard about it and just think that it's a government conspiracy. Back in the day, during like the heat of the drug wars, the CIA actually had the CIA was selling cocaine to low-income neighborhoods, specifically minority neighborhoods, blacks, Mexicans, things of that nature, taking the profits to buy weapons, to supply weapons to the Contras. The Contras were a militia group in a South American country, I can't recall off the top of my head which country, to help those people overthrow their government. So, even though it was illegal, the government themselves made this illegal, created the drug war, and have arrested millions and millions of people, ended families because of this. They themselves took part of selling drugs specifically to minority neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods, where they continued to push this agenda of inequality in the police force, arresting and targeting minorities, because they knew that's where the drugs were, and then taking those profits and sending it over to militias to fund a war.
Well,
that's what our government did. We're going to provide the actual government documentation of it that shows that this actually happened. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is what happened.
Well, yeah, and not to mention the whole war on marijuana, that was also aimed highly at minorities, and it was based on hysteria.
Well, it wasn't even necessarily. I mean, on the back end of that, it was largely to do with the paper industry. Hemp is a way cheaper alternative to paper.
Yeah, you're right. That is true.
So there
was a lot of hysteria involved, though.
Mm-hmm. But that was afterwards. That was the propaganda because of that. They found that they wanted to make more money from the paper industry, from specifically wood-based paper. So then they started the propaganda of weed and the whole not even once movement. Or just say no movement, rather.
Yeah, take a gander at both versions of Reefer Madness. You'll see exactly what they were doing. It's a very good picture.
But yeah, the making things illegal and creating a black market for it just allows the government to abuse that system. All it does is hurt us, or we the people, rather than anything to do with the government. It only hurts the people.
Drugs are going to ruin your life, so I'm going to throw you in jail and ruin your life. Mm-hmm. Because I guarantee you, after you get out of jail, your ability to do all sorts of things will be limited. There are many states in which felons non-violent felons lose their right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
We are literally giving them permission to take our right to vote. Have you thought about that?
That has a lot to do with political control, which we're going to get into a little bit later here. But yeah, whenever you're targeting, it's largely a race-based thing. I hate to get into that, but it's largely racist.
Well,
There's
it can
so
be
many
very
leads that
classist
go to.
too, but
Well, that's what it's racist and classist at the same time. You can make both arguments. They all kind of blend into each other. That's just unfortunately how it is. But yeah, so they're taking away your rights to vote, and no one thinks any worse of it because you have a federal crime on. Yeah. Kind of digging into that, just as a quick example, I want to remind people that legalizing things is not inherently a bad thing. Like, it's not a crazy idea. Ron Paul famously, during a speech, a debate, he was questioned by whoever the fuck the judge person was there. He was questioned, so Mr. Ron Paul, do you want to legalize marijuana? And Ron Paul famously replied that he wants to legalize everything. He wants to legalize all the drugs. And they all but laughed at him then. And Ron Paul, in classic Ron Paul fashion, decided to direct a question at the audience, the people that were there, and asked, how many of you, if meth was legalized or if cocaine was legalized, how many of you would go and take cocaine and or meth? And nobody raised their fucking hands. And Ron Paul just, mic dropped on that shit.
Senator, are you suggesting that heroin and prostitution are an exercise of liberty?
Well, I probably never used those words. You put those words someplace, but yes, in essence, if I leave it to the states, it's going to be up to the states. Up until this past century, for over 100 years they were legal. What you're inferring is, you know what? If we legalized heroin tomorrow, everybody's going to use heroin. How many people here would use heroin if it was legal? I bet nobody would put their hand, oh yeah, I need the government to take care of me. I don't want to use heroin, so I need these laws.
I never thought heroin would get applause here in South Carolina. Governor John.
In addition, there's also Portugal. Portugal legalized, I think, everything. If I recall correctly, it was absolutely every substance. I'm pretty sure it was everything. And instead of creating a system of arresting people and making these things federal punishments, and basically ruining these people's lives, they focused not on the incarceration aspect of it, but on rehab, on helping these people get back into society and weaning them off of these hardcore drugs and making them productive citizens without harming their record, without breaking up families, without stealing millions of dollars from the general populations. They helped people. And when you help people and get them jobs, they end up helping their communities. The more people you take out of society and throw them into prisons and ruin their lives, the less people you have contributing to their societies and the more crime you have.
Yeah. Really, truly. And
now,
we bitched about it enough. Do you want to... Well, we kind of already talked about one of the solutions that we had in mind, which was legalizing the substances and creating a free market instead of an incentivized black market. We've been banging that on the head since we started. That's basically the best way to deal with it. And because, as I said, with the marijuana issues, we have people being arrested for marijuana, or people who were arrested for marijuana in places that it's now legal, and they're still sitting in jail. And when they get out, if they aren't released and pardoned, these people will be felons. They will have their lives, they will be treated like felons for the rest of their life because they sold or smoked or carried a green plant that is now legal in their state. This just blows me away that we're all okay with this. that we're okay with them taking taking these things away from us and stuff. And that's one of the major, I mean, and that kind of leads us into our next section, our next part, doesn't it really? Did you want to say anything more before we move on to that?
Well, I just wanted to reiterate, the solutions for prohibition. If you legalize the substance, there's no black market, so that's actually reducing the crime. 2, you're also reducing the crime because now it's legalized, so now people aren't getting arrested for those crimes. 2, if you focus, 3, if you focus on the legalization aspect of it, you can focus more on helping people out of those situations rather than just throwing them in prison. And 4, you're actually making it a safer environment for people by legalizing it, because then, I guess if you have to, you can federally regulate it, or even locally regulate it, to where there's a certain standard for those items. Colorado had a big issue with this whenever they legalized marijuana in their state. Because it was still federally legal, there wasn't a whole lot of federal regulations on it. There still isn't a lot of federal regulations on it. So people were taking consumables and were just tripping fucking balls because it was such a high dose.
It was making people really sick at their stomachs and stuff.
Exactly. So if you legalize it, you can put a regulation to it and make things safer for people.
Or you can at least study it and educate the populace on not eating too many brownies and throwing up. Like if it was illegal, if it was legal, we wouldn't even have to regulate it. We could just study it and educate each other.
Now here's the biggest thing for me before we jump into the next subject here. So, not only does that help the market as well, because now you have additional income sources. You've got this new free market item in there that's legalized, so people are able to tax it, I guess. You now have, with a free market, that creates competition. If weed was legalized, I don't want to say 100 years ago, that's incorrect. If weed was legalized 50 years ago, that's 50 years of development for hemp and marijuana products that we just missed out on. And now all this research is coming on across the world about how helpful hemp and marijuana both are. Hemp is easily one of the best products out there. It can make rope, it can make fabrics, it can make paper with way smaller amounts than what trees take for that type of thing. We can make paper with half the amount of hemp.
Plus, the plant that they used to make the hemp from, they do it a lot from the male plants, and the male plants, they also come with like the largest amount of like CBD. So medicinally, it's amazing as well.
But there's just so many things. Rather than focusing on opioids and selling legal fucking cocaine to people, legal heroin to people, you could be selling things that don't have nearly as bad as side effects by legalizing marijuana and letting that help you.
Yeah.
Moreover, it's unethical to tell people that you can't take these things because I decided it 60 years ago. You can't help your child with these seizures because I said it was illegal 60 years ago.
Yeah. People have to go through all these loops just to get their kids their seizure medications on school property now. It's a little bit silly. It is. And the incarceration rate that is caused by the drug war and prohibition is just, it's silly. Like, we have all these people losing their lives.
To other nations.
Yeah, it's almost as big of a joke as our prison system is. And at this point in time, our prison system is our other topic, and it's really like, it's a part that seems to be built to work against us as citizens. Do I believe that certain people need to be in prison? Yes. I even believe that if we had a better system that we could trust, that the death penalty should be fucking used. However, I don't trust the system right now, and the reason is because we send too many innocent people to prison, and that ruins their lives. And I'd rather have, as some of the people, as Tim Pool is always saying, and I have to agree with him, I'd rather 10 innocent people go away or 10 not innocent people go free than for us to allow the state to kill one.
You say go away. Like, this isn't Soviet Russia.
Russia.
They're not just, this
That's
isn't
not
going to
what-
be dragged away.
Go free is what I meant, not go away. But yeah, I mean, like, it's something that really bothers me. The prison system is one of our big problems. It's supposed to be cutting down on crime and keeping us safer. But what it's really doing is, you know, it with its many imperfections, it's really just keeping us. I think the prison system actually makes people worse. And when they come out of it, they can't get their life together, and they end up back in the system again. That's one of the bigger problems. Another thing is, you know, obviously, if you go to jail or if you go to prison, that's on your record, and it will affect the jobs you can get. You will be limited for the rest of your life. It's like if you break a law, then forever the government takes away your ability to get up in the world. They create a permanent lower class.
Yeah.
Didn't you say so?
No, I totally agree. Incarceration, or the prison system in general, I feel is just it's there for a very political reason. It's not there to help the populations, and you can prove that by looking at the other nations. You know, it's not just about. I get this bullshit all the time. You know, they like to look at like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all these other nations with their social programs and how great their welfare and shit is. Look at their fucking prison systems first. They have no one there. They're letting people import prisoners to Sweden to stay at their prisons.
Well,
We
they're
don't
importing
have-
other people to their prisons. We'd be exporting
yes.
them to their prison. But yeah.
Yes. We have the exact opposite problem. Our prisons are flooded with people.
Yeah, too
We
many
need to fix these problems first before we start looking at other bullshit. Right now, the prison systems are there to keep people down. It's there as a stick as compared to a carrot. Where Portugal has their carrot system of saying, hey, we're going to help you out. If you're addicted to the substance, we're going to get you rehab and get you back on your feet. We have a stick system of we're going to beat the shit out of you if we ever find you breaking a law. And that's not a free nation. That's a police state.
Yeah, and
if you think that's okay, go fuck yourself. You're a fucking lost cause.
Really, honestly,
as far as I
don't
see it.
even know what to fucking say at that point. Because, like, these
Go
people...
sign up for Nazi Germany.
These people, they make a mistake and they break a law. And I'm not saying that these people are good or innocent, but they're human beings. And it destroys their ability to ever be a better one, because they will forever in their life be struggling. That is if they ever get out. Our prison system is built to stack people up like sardines and then treat them like animals while they're in there. And they begin to behave like animals. You can't help yourself. You have to adjust to prison life. And a lot of times people end up
join a gang while you're in there.
Well, yeah, and things like this, they perpetuate crime inside of the prison, which then gives you more time and more sentencing. And I mean, it just keeps us there forever and ever. And when you get out, you've given up your education, you've given up your ability to interact with other human beings that have not lived, like, you know, in cages. You can't function. Some people become, during their stay in prison, some people become conditioned to that life and they can't live another way. And that actually happens in more than one kind of situation, like homelessness and stuff. But it's horrible. And we're all okay with sentencing a human being to that. And that really bothers me. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with the prison system if it was about sending people back out into society. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the only people that really need to be in a prison system, and even then, I think it's a bit of a stretch to keep them there for long term. I'm fully for the fucking death penalty as far as I see it. But rapists and murderers, child pedophiles, those are the only people that I think should be being sent there. And really, rather than fucking keeping them alive and taking that time, we should be putting them up to a shooting squad.
I
But
mean, if you
that's
go around assaulting a bunch of people, you should probably be put in jail.
well, I
To
would
teach
say
you a
that's
lesson.
closer to the lines of murder.
And get some
but
therapy and shit going for you and stuff.
to clarify, that's probably not the most libertarian aspect of me. But there
Probably
it is.
not. I'm a little
Some people
bit,
would argue that you're not supposed to do that.
I'm a little bit super hippie when it comes to this particular subject too. Like, I don't always agree with all the libertarians on it either. You're a little bit hardcore. I'm a little bit, alright, maybe, like, let's chill out. Either
It's 'cause
way,
we have emotions.
yeah, I know it's horrible. Fucking emotions, Jesus Christ. But, like, you know, it's these emotions that make this such a serious deal to me, and I'll admit that. Like, I get very emotional about the prison system because I've seen a lot of people go in and either never come out, or they go in and they lose who they are. They come out somebody else.
Hmm.
And it's just, we're not sentencing these people to rehabilitation. We are sentencing these people to something that is sometimes worse than death.
Hmm.
And we need to be thinking about that. We need to have this shown to us more, because they hide it away from us at this point. You don't see this kind of shit. You don't get to see any of it anymore.
Yeah.
And out of sight, out of mind, they're slipping this kind of behavior towards us, this authoritarian behavior towards us, and hoping we don't fucking notice. Hoping we keep fighting each other long enough for what, I don't know, but it can't be good. Let me just put my tinfoil hat on real quick.
Dictatorships don't happen overnight. It didn't happen with Hitler, even though he overthrew the Reichstag at the time. He was, a prime minister for a time. He was an outright dictator for a long period of time. He didn't just overnight say that we're going to start mass murdering the Jews. He started eroding freedoms little by little. It happens slowly. It happens bite by bite. Get used to the ideas of this thing. Propaganda starts getting forced at you. I mean, how many people in their 50s and 60s, that are really pro-marijuana? A lot of people that think, a lot of people within that age group that have been subjected, have been subjected to the propaganda from that age. They think that people that do weed are losers, essentially, because that's the propaganda that was shoved down their throat.
You're gonna get a lot of pushback from that, though, because you also have the Woodstock people in that age group.
No, those were the young people.
50s and 60s.
I'm talking about the people that were already alive by then. No, I'm talking about the people that came back from World War II, were very pro-government, and they lived through the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, they're in their, like, 70s and 80s now.
Yeah, same difference.
That's a different age group of people. We're sorry, hippies. Namaste.
I'm not sorry about the hippies. But yeah, so you've got that was propaganda.
Yeah, it was. It was total propaganda.
And they got okay with it. They accepted it. It not overnight, but it was something that they saw enough, and they started accepting as truth. And now the public opinion has gone the exact opposite way. That's how democracy, that's how republics, that's how freedoms are eroded, is little by little. It's erosion of freedoms. It's not dismantling of freedoms overnight.
Yes, and we are funding these erosions with our own tax dollars.
Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to bitch about the military-industrial complex and then also support more taxes.
Yeah.
It's just being hypocritical of it.
Right.
Now, so yeah, the whole incarceration system, it's there to target the problem there that they're trying to get at is the whole drug war things. It's there to just crime in general. I mean, that seems obvious. You break the law that we're putting in place, and we're going to punish you for it. That is what the incarceration system is for. That's what prisons and jails are for. So why it doesn't work? I mean, again, going back to
incentivize how many people they can keep, not how many people they put back out.
Exactly. It's all about the number of people that they can get inside of their systems. That's how the prison systems make their money. If you change the aspect of it, if you change the look of it, rather than using a stick method, you can use a carrot method.
Yeah.
How many prisons are you getting rehab and sending back into society that are getting jobs? How about we pay you for that rather than getting as many people as possible in your prison system? If anything, you would.
Negative incentives cost us money and hurt the people that they're being pushed upon. Positive incentives, they serve the people that they're being pushed upon, that they're being offered to, and they serve the community as a whole too.
There's actually research for this very thing. I think, if I recall correctly, it's the stick and carrot method. World of Warcraft is a famous role-playing game online, and they actually did extensive research on this, where they wanted people to get on their game more often. And so originally they had a punishment system in place. Like, if you weren't on for so many hours, then you got less experience. Yeah, it was something of that extent. It's been so long now, I don't know.
Ditto.
But instead, they decided to do it the opposite way, where if you're rewarded for logging back in, and their subscription rates went way up, their average playtime went way up, because people are now incentivized to go do your thing. If you incentivize people, people are more likely to do it. If you decentivize people, well, really, the people are going to keep fucking doing it, and you're just beating them for it.
Yeah.
You're putting them in the dirt while they're already down.
I am way less likely to log in knowing that I'm going to have a harder time than I would be knowing that I'd get my daily bonus.
Exactly. A whole other thing with the incarceration thing is that it's overwhelmingly focused on the poor and minorities. And honestly, I more or less use that stuff interchangeably, because it is largely race focused. And that's not me being racist, that's just how the government system has done it. They've purposely targeted minorities and forced them into poor situations.
And this sucks. We don't like this, even though, we're pointing it out because we do not like this.
That's not to say that there isn't poor white people that are also in jail.
True.
It's definitely the poor in general. It's just minorities are overwhelmingly targeted.
Poor white America is falling victim to meth and opiates at a fucking horribly increasing rate.
We're getting our dues. We're getting our dues.
Yeah. Well, speak for yourself, Kemosabe.
So yeah, the prison system is overwhelmingly targeted at the poor, minorities, etc. and so forth. They are keeping those places down. Again, going back to the Contra CIA issue, they were specifically putting these illegal substances, selling these illegal substances in poor neighborhoods, knowing fully well that the police were going to go to those same neighborhoods and arrest those people. They were doing this on purpose. That's as targeted as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And then you get these people that are getting arrested for these nonviolent crimes, weed, marijuana, cocaine, whatever it might be, whatever they might be doing. Then they're being shipped off to these prison systems. What might not have been a gang-related offense then, now is going to turn into a gang-related thing, because within prison systems, you all but have to join a gang to survive. So these people join a gang, and then they're expected to stay in that gang after they get out. Now they're hardened criminals, because now they have a boss leader. Now they have a job that they have to do. Now they're trained, and they're in this mindset that to take care of their family, they need to do what their boss tells them to so they can get money and provide for their family. These people took care of me in prison for 8 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, so now I'm going to take care of those people. And it's a weird form of it's like negative self-reliance.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if people don't join gangs, or don't come up with, don't play the game, you don't necessarily have to join a gang, but if they don't play the game and start living the life of the place they're at, they die sometimes, y'all. Sometimes when they're being sentenced to a year or 2 years or 5 years, they die in these places. They never come out. Are you comfortable with paying for that to happen to people? Because that's not justice.
Now, the next thing is the whole thing. If there's incentive for the government with incarceration, the government is making more money. Whenever they have fines, whenever they give you a ticket, the government in that area is drawing in money from that fine. Whenever you get hit with a ticket for speeding, money is going into the government. So the government now has an incentive to make more ridiculous laws so that more people are breaking the law, so that more money is going to the government. This is after you've already paid your taxes. So not only are you being forced to give your money to the government, now anytime that you break one of their makeshift laws that they're purposely making with the intent of getting more money, you're just creating a cycle of corruption. A lot of people like to say that police officers it's illegal for police officers to have quotas. That's 100% true in most areas.
But
so is cocaine, meth, marijuana. Exactly.
They still have the quotas.
It still happens. If you don't hit a certain amount of people, your boss is going to let you know, hey, how come you didn't hit anyone up? How come you only have 5 tickets and this guy has 10 tickets?
Yeah, what are we paying you for? Eating donuts?
Exactly. There is incentive for more corruption. Mike, can we go to the solutions before I start yelling at this stuff?
Yeah, because I'm getting emotional, and you know what happens when I get emotional. So, obviously, there are some pretty simple ways to make this situation better. You're gonna probably guess that we're gonna say, we need to end the black market again, because that feeds into a lot of the population of prisons. Prohibition feeds prisons. And if we cut down on victimless crimes, we will cut down on criminals. Because a lot of these people are being named criminals because of, victimless crimes. And, we could let me just say, one more time. You know what I mean? God damn it. I'm stuck in a freaking loop where I can't stop saying that. But, I mean, really, if we get rid of the victimless crimes, we will cut down on the population. Right now, we have people sitting, like I said earlier, we have people sitting for crimes that have even been legalized in their areas. And it's just, it's ridiculous. We need to cut back on how many people are being put in these prisons.
The craziest thing to me, for example, would be Colorado legalizing weed and then federal agents going in there to arrest people, which they have done. That is scary. That is terrifying. That is the federal government stepping up and saying, even though you locally decided as a peoples that you are okay with this, we're in charge here. You don't get a say.
And even though they don't do it as blatantly as they used to, you have the lines. You have people being arrested and fined and arrested because they're crossing from one place where it's legal to another place where it's legal. Not too long ago, there was a Canadian woman trying to come into the country from a place where it was legal into the country where a place it was legal. And she was detained. I'll find a link of that and toss that up there because that was kind of interesting and a little bit troubling. Because, they're just getting quieter about it. They're not getting better about it.
And yeah, tying back into it, again, it's the carrot to stick method. If we make more incentive for people to get better, rather than beating these people that are already in shitty situations by being addicts to hard drugs, why don't we incentivize getting these people off of these said drugs and getting them into a position where they can be, productive citizens and helping the community again? Why are we so inclined to take these people that are already laying down and pushing their face into the dirt and keeping them down? It's almost like that's our goal.
I'll admit that I've been one of those people who ended up on the wrong side of the law, but because I was at that moment living in a rather comfortable situation, I got to go to rehab instead of going to jail. Why doesn't everyone get to go to rehab instead of going to jail? Why did I just get that because I was upper middle class at the time? Why?
Is it white?
I'm not white, though. I'm a filthy mixed breed mutt thing.
I believe it.
It's not because I was white. It's because I had enough money to contest it, and we had a lawyer, and they got me into rehab instead of jail. Well, we should all be going to rehab instead of jail for things like that. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I mean, that just seems logical. Like, I get these people on the left and right always talking about wanting to help people, and then they just seem to completely ignore the prison systems. The only thing that the left likes to talk about is how it's all race related. It's not just about the race relation. It's just complete government corruption. It's strong arming government. That is what it is. Why won't you stop looking at the surface problems? Sit down and consider problems for longer than 30 seconds. Read at least one book other than Clifford the Big Red Dog, and then maybe, just maybe, you might realize that this isn't just about race relations. This is about large government keeping people specifically down. This is a big government problem. That's it. Yeah. That's the cut and dry of it. You can solve all these problems by limiting the size of the government.
Well, not to mention a lot of those situations that, quote, ruin your lives, they're because of federal crimes, not state crimes.
Moving further into that, a quick way of getting, fixing these type of situations and getting the incarceration rate down, crime rates down, is just by large taking care of these laws. And this is something Yang has spoken about, where we're cutting off a lot of laws that haven't been used in hundreds of years, which just streamlines everything, for one. But two, if we more specifically try to cut off these non-violent crimes and just cut those out, we would be a lot better off as a nation. Not only are there going to be a lot less people going into the prison systems, you're going to have just better family lives in general. Because now you're not having people being taken away out of these family situations for very, very minor things. It's all just a completely corrupt system there. They're doing it not because they have to, not because it's a necessity. It's because they want to keep the people down. They are trying to limit the people.
Yeah, well, let's not actually forget the fact that our prison system treats our inmates like slaves sometimes. Are we okay with that too? Like, are they really not human anymore? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I mean, the left seems to like the whole idea of people being slaves to the government, so...
So does the right, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Jokers to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, libertarian again. I'm just kidding. I got accused of centrism earlier. I'm still laughing about it. Are you,
So, yeah,
do you
just
want to add
pulling
anything else? Because, like...
I mean, that seems to be it just makes sense to me. If no one's
really
getting hurt, why are we punishing people? Just fucking think of that. What is the good of it?
Think about property damage, right? Why are we sending some people to jail for, like, theft and property damage instead of, like, making them fix or replace whatever they took or lost? Like, if somebody steals something and sells it and it's gone, people don't get their shit back. How's that justice? We are literally, that person's just screwed, and this person goes to jail. Instead, we could have this person work and pay off what he owes the price of whatever the fuck he screwed up or stole or whatever, and that person gets their shit back or gets it replaced, and they don't go away to jail, and their family doesn't lose a breadwinner, and they don't have that stigma on them for the rest of their lives. And maybe they'll learn a fucking lesson, because that's much more, because we're teaching them personal accountability. Instead of going, if you do this, we're just going to stick you in a box with a bunch of other assholes. We're going to make you work for it. people hate that shit. Make them work for it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that we're just putting these people in boxes so that we can pay for them to live. Like, instead of them working off their debt to the people that they created, we are paying for them to live.
Mm-hmm.
There's no accountability in that system at all.
No, there's really not. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I could talk about this all damn day, but I mean, we might need to go into our.
We're gonna have episodes specifically over these topics.
Yes.
You know, within time, where we can go into explicit detail on all these things. But we really just wanted to give we wanted to give a rundown of commonly addressed things by the left and right and why they are just both so fucking wrong. It's I get this all the time from my friends saying it doesn't seem like it matters who I elect. It doesn't seem to matter if I elect a Democrat or a Republican, and that's because that's true. It doesn't fucking matter because they're both strengthening the centralized federal government, and there's no instance in which the federal government, people all the way down in DC, know better how to take care of yourself and your family or your property than you do. There's no situation in which that's the case.
Yep.
The Democrats and Republicans are both very fucking wrong. The only solution is smaller government. Smaller government, and with that, if you have a smaller government, you can do the things that you want to fucking do. If you want to have a socialist society and vote that in your local area, then you can fucking do that, and you can have your local neighborhood collapse into an economic depression and eat your local family dog. If that's your agenda, then by all means you can do that. That's the ability of having local power. We need to take that back. We need to realize how important us as individuals are. The left always likes to talk about how special we all are and how unique we all are.
Well,
but
they
don't really believe that.
We need to actually be special. You can't just tell people they're all special and expect them to fucking believe that. We've all got participation ribbons right now. What the fuck does it matter?
Yeah, if you're a participation ribbon volunteerist, you're not doing it right. And that's largely what a lot of people like to do. You got to get out there and make change. It's little shit that you can do that really makes a world of difference.
Yeah, and we've ragged on the left a lot this freaking run because I have a lot of problems discussing a lot of these things with them. But it seems like the right seems so fervored about the left versus right fight that's going on out there that, like, they overlook the human side of things sometimes. And that really worries me. Because they're willing, like, they're also, just like the left, willing to pick a side, not because they think it's right, but because it's their side. They won't confront these things that are wrong. Now, not all of you, and this is true for the left and the right. I see left and the right out there contesting these things, but it's a small group of you. God bless you all, but it's a small group of you.
Yeah.
Please don't stop, mind you. But, like, we all need to be aware of who we're supporting and what we're allowing them to do to us. Not only what we're allowing them to do to us, but what we're allowing generations, leaders of the future, to do to us, too.
Yeah.
Because we've built up this gap, this pit of our prison system, the gap of our welfare. We allowed this to be built up generation after generation. This didn't happen overnight, just like he said. We got to be aware.
It's only getting worse. It's the whole thing where people, and we're getting this a lot, where a lot of people are saying that the left are super, super extremists now, and that the central is essentially the alt-right to them because they're so far to the left. This isn't something that happened overnight, though. You've got to remember that the Democrats, 10, 20 years ago were almost identical to the Republicans as far as I could tell. And now it's It's an extreme
Yeah.
difference.
10,
but it's
20 years
happened
ago,
over
I was
decades.
standing with the left, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was standing with them. I was fighting with them. I was an activist. I was loud.
It's
There was
something
just a
that
certain
happens
point
over
where
happens over an extended period of time, though. It's not overnight.
Yeah, even standing in the middle of it, you don't realize that it's changed so much until something shocking enough happens to wake your ass up about it.
All right. Well, I think that
I think that
covers all the
about
subjects
covers
that we
it
were
for
wanting
today.
to.
By the
Yeah.
way, if you have any knowledge that about these things that we discussed, or if you want to contest it, if you want to make a comment, if you feel that we left something out that was very important, if you want to tell us we're dumbasses, please contact us. We'll talk about it. Maybe even have you on tea time.
Yeah, if you would like to join us for tea time over a specific subject, like maybe you're an expert in the field, again, feel free to hit us up. If you have a particular good news story for your local community where it's uplifting and positive, then feel free to hit us up and let us know about it, and maybe at some point we can add it onto our sweet tea segment.
Especially if it's something ongoing that we can encourage people to get involved in. That would be awesome.
Oh yeah. Now, today, as you guys might be familiar with at this point, we like to always reach out to our fellow content creators and help spread the word about people. And today we're doing someone that's very near and dear to us, particularly because he's ran through a very hard time the past couple of weeks here. So today we are talking about Mr. Jordan Peterson, who is quite the controversial figure in today's society, but I feel like that's gone away for the most part. There's still a whole bunch of people that call him a Nazi, but I feel like he's rather accepted in society now compared to a few months ago. Do you want to let people know what's going on here, Mike? Why we want to bring him up in particular?
Yeah, normally we do more just people who are content creators, so you won't see us do people who are celebrities very often, but we really want it. A what?
He's also a content creator.
He is a content creator. He's I feel like he's on a different level than us, though. Well, than YouTubers or whatever. But, well, he has always been the kind of person who gives advice to other people. He has given people a drive. He has replaced bits and pieces of things that are missing from people. And I don't know, obviously he has to know how much he's affected people, but I don't know if he'll ever truly know how many people he has helped. His books, his content, his lectures, even his direct advice, it's moved a lot of people. And no, he's not gospel. He's not perfect, and that was one of the reasons why I think we like him so much. He doesn't pretend to be, and right now he's recently checked himself into a rehab, not because of drug use or something of that nature, but because he was having a hard time. His wife has had a lot of health problems, and he was on, was it Klonopin?
I believe it was.
I believe it was Klonopin, and that's staunch shit. And he was trying to come off of it. And I've come off of medications myself. You need to be monitored. You can do some weird shit that you would never otherwise do. Plus, it can cause you physical problems to just go off of medications. So he's checked himself into a rehab, which is kind of controversial to do for somebody that gets all of this attention all the time. And there's going to be some haters out there, I know, that are, going to try and use this to smear him with. But I feel that what he's doing is amazing, and it's responsible. And it's it's just along the lines of the things that he's taught us to do. And I'm getting emotional, so you take it, because if you don't, I'm going to cry. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Well, I think a big thing that a big reason why it's important to me is, one, he's bringing it to the forefront. He's okay with people knowing about it, and he one of the biggest proponents for him has always been about people's mental health. And mental health is such a big stigma in our society for some reason or another. Even with all the talk of it lately, it's still heavily stigmatized. And here you have someone that's super, super, super famous, who's, part of the intellectual dark web, who's constantly talking about these people, has all these people that he's changed their lives, just got done with his world tour. Well, I think he was still technically doing it. But now he's checking himself in a rehab center because the whole reason he's on this is because he was depressed. He was very depressed, and he was dealing with his wife having cancer. And his wife, he's known since he was a child.
Yeah.
So it's been very, very hard on him mentally. So he got on this depression medication. And now that his wife is doing better, he's wanting himself to do better. He's not wanting to rely on these drugs, so he's trying to wean himself off of that. And that's why he's checking into the rehab
so
centers.
responsibly.
It's super, I've always loved Jordan Peterson. I've always loved him. It's very hard for me to say anything negative about him, and this just boosts his respect to a 20. And I've seen a lot of positive feedback from people that usually hate on him, talking about this very subject, where it's
that's actually been very encouraging to me, because talking about mental illness is something that I think that should be easier for us, and I try to encourage it wherever I go. And so he's such an inspiration to me, to see him actually following those footsteps when it gets hard. That's great, because how many times do we see people who are trying to present themselves as some sort of role model to us, and then suddenly they just, when they're actually faced with the moment of reckoning, they fail us as human beings.
Ben Shapiro.
But this time, I mean, he is acknowledging his weakness and overcoming. That is amazing. And
that's
all of my good vibes
are
are totally going out to you, Mr. Peterson. You are not alone. There are so many people watching you right now. Oh God. Okay, I'm gonna stop. No pressure.
I saw this on Reddit, actually. This is how I actually learned about it. And there were so many people stating that they don't agree with Jordan Peterson, or, politically they don't agree with Jordan Peterson, but still wishing him well.
Yeah.
That to me is so humanizing, because it happens so often that we try to crucify the people on the opposition. And there's a lot of people that hate Jordan Peterson for some reason. And to see people reaching across the aisle to share their love and support for someone, even if they don't agree with them, just acknowledging that he's a human being that's suffering. Yeah, it's great. It's something that we need to do more often. We need to realize that at the end of the day, even across the aisles, there's a person there. There's a whole 20, 30, 40, 50 years of this person growing up to come up with their beliefs. And we need to respect that.
Accomplishments, hardships, victories, failures, lessons.
We're all human. We all really have no fucking idea what we're talking about, except for us. We're the only ones you can really trust.
Obviously, we know everything.
Clearly. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I can't recall who said this, and it's really going to bother me. If we figure it out after this, we'll put the name up. But there was a famous philosopher. I can't remember his name. It's really going to bother me.
What did they say?
But there's a famous philosopher that said that the only thing that humans all have in common across the world is that we're all experience suffering, that we can all connect to one another because we've all suffered. Maybe not to the same degree, maybe not over the same things, but we all know that we've all felt sadness, we've all felt grief, we've all felt loss. That to me is really the core of it.
Yeah.
If you want to help people because you know what it feels like to be in those situations, it's empathy. That's what makes us human.
Yeah. Really.
Well, fuck.
God. Yeah, we're gonna put links to his websites and some of his books and stuff like that down below. We suggested his book in our book club last time, so we'll probably pick his. Doesn't he have a? We'll pick his other book maybe, or something like that. One of his other writings.
Yeah, he's got an additional book.
Yeah,
that one's a little more highbrow.
Yeah.
He's coming up with a new one, by the way. He's writing a new one.
That's why I was like faltering, because I wasn't sure if he had 3 or 2 yet.
It's
too much, I get confused about these things sometimes and have to go look them up. But we'll put a bunch of links down there, and maybe like if you haven't if you've seen this just now and you don't know you didn't know what was going on, but you want to give him some support, totally do that, you know. I've been encouraging people to send emails and stuff.
Here's what I would like to do. If you like Jordan Peterson, if Jordan Peterson has helped you in any way, and you don't, for whatever reason, don't want to take the time to write a letter and send it off to Jordan Peterson, send us something.
Yeah.
You know, give us your experiences about Jordan Peterson. We'll fucking copy and paste it, and we'll find out who the fuck to send it to, and we'll get it over to him. And we'll just send a massive letters over to him.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Because right now, I think he needs some fucking help.
We all need it sometime. And I mean, that's just the honest truth of that. I think that that's a somber but also in like uplifting kind of place to leave ourselves at today, don't you think?
I would say so.
Yeah. Gracious me, Lordy Almighty. I would like to, before we go, give a special thanks to our resident LiberTEA people and all the help that they have given us and all the help that they're going to give us when we edit this video and put it together. I would also like to obviously thank coffee and marijuana, and I would really like to thank the fact that I didn't actually bawl on camera today.
And I would like to thank A&W and Rum for helping me make this episode today.
Yes, and we would like to definitely unthank Microsoft, because their updates took for fucking ever.
Those corporations, man. We just need to fucking tear them down.
Boo.
And just remember, please, if you liked this, subscribe and share this on your social media to help us out. Feel free to check us out on our various social media pages. We've got Twitch, Gab, is it Minds? We've got all kinds going on here. Not to mention our own Discord, where you can come in and talk to us, tell us how shitty we are, tell us how great we are, stroke my ego some more. Yeah, and just let us know if you loved the episode, hated the episode, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time when we talk about the environment, something very near and dear to my heart and very near and dear to Mike, who hates chickens.
Would you just lay off the chicken thing, for God's sake? Anyways,
Never.
This LiberTEA party is adjourned.